Thank you for watching another episode of Curious Cat Crime Sunday with Shelby and Olivia. Today's episode is going to be on the serial killer Derrick Todd Lee. And let's get to it. Hello guys, so one thing I wanted to say before we started is that this case actually made forensic history for being one of the first to show that the DNA was able to show what kind of person this person was, what they looked like and resembled, and it made history due to this and helped solve the case. So I just wanted to say that before we got into that, because being in forensics, learning about it in school, I find that to be very, very interesting, and I can't wait to get into this story. So let's get to it. So in this video, I think I'm going to do a timeline again because I enjoyed doing that for my last video, and I think it's good at showing like the timeline of events and how things are done. So let's start off at September 24th, 2001. This is when 40-year-old Gina Wilson Green was found murdered in her home on Stanford Avenue near LSU. Autopsies report that she was aped and strangled. Police said her cell phone and purse were missing, and that her cell phone was found weeks later in an alley on Choctaw Street. DNA evidence was taken from the crime scene and was analyzed at Louisiana State Crime Lab. However, they were not able to match it to anyone at this time. January 14, 2002. Darren DeSoto found his 21-year-old wife, Geraldine DeSoto, lying in a pool of blood in her Baton Rouge home. Geraldine DeSoto was an LSU student and was planning to attend graduate school in the fall of 2002. DeSoto's husband was the lead suspect in her murder, before evidence linked to Lee. Now, this evidence obviously didn't link directly to Lee yet. That's going to be later on. So, in May 31st, 2002, a roommate found 22-year-old Charlotte Murray Pace's body at her apartment in Baton Rouge. Autopsy report says Pace was stabbed over 80 times and aped. She also received other defensive injuries showing she tried to fight off her attacker. Pace had recently graduated from LSU as one of the youngest students to receive an MBA degree in business administration. That's terrible. Police said on July 9, 2002, Diane Alexander was attacked in her home in Brox. It's French, I'm assuming, and if I'm saying it wrong, I truly apologize. I'm not good at pronouncing things. Near a bridge. Alexander later told police that a black male knocked on her door asking to use her phone. Alexander said when the man found out her husband was not home, he overpowered her and attempted to ape her. Investigators said the man beat her and tried to strangle her with a telephone cord. Alexander's son arrived home during the attack and found his mother lying on the floor in blood. She survived the attack and after 5 days was able to help police develop a composite sketch of her attacker, which I will put here. On July 12, 2002, 44-year-old Pam Kennemore was kidnapped from her home, beaten, and raped. Police said her husband arrived at their Briarwood Place home and found spots of blood on the bedroom rug. Disheveled furniture and his wife was missing. There was no sign of forced entry into the home. Investigators said 3 days later, a survey crew found her body just south of Whiskey Bay exit on I-10. Kennemore had defensive injuries as well as cuts on her neck. DNA taken from the body matched the attacker who murdered Green and Pace. Kennemore owned Comforts and Joy Antique Shop in Denham Springs. November 21st, 2002. 23-year-old Trinisha Dene Combe was kidnapped from her Lafayette home on November 21st, 2002. Investigators said her car, purse, and keys were found in Grand Coteau near the cemetery where her mother was buried just 7 months earlier. Police said a hunter found her body 3 days later in the woods near Scott, Louisiana. Autopsy report said Combs died from blunt force trauma to the head. DNA from Eamon, I don't know how to say some of these words, taken from Combs' body matched a DNA profile consistent with Green, Pace, and Kennemore murders. Combs was the first black victim and the first victim outside the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area linked to Lee. On March 3rd, 2003, 26-year-old Carrie Lee Yonder was kidnapped from her LSU apartment between 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. 10 days later, her body was found in Whiskey Bay area near where Cam Kinnamore's body was found. Police believe her body was thrown from a nearby bridge. Baton Rouge police said Yoder was beaten, aped, and strangled to death. Baton Rouge police said DNA evidence recovered during the autopsy and analyzed at the Louisiana State Crime Lab matched the DNA profile from the murder of Green, Pace, Canamore, and Combe. Yoder was a biological science graduate from LSU. Baton Rouge police obtained a DNA sample from Derrick Todd Lee. BRPD said the DNA sample taken from Lee matched the DNA sample taken from Yoder's body. On May 26, 2003, an arrest warrant was issued for Derrick Todd Lee for first-degree murder of Carrie Lynn Yoder. Okay. On May 27, 2003, the Atlanta Police Department Fugitive Squad arrested Derrick Todd Lee. Atlantic Police Chief Richard Pennington told CNN that Lee did not resist. "I know now that we have taken a very dangerous man that's a serial murderer suspect off the street of Atlanta, and I'm sure the citizens of Louisiana are proud as well that we've taken a very dangerous person off our street," Pennington said. Later that week, Lee was extradited back to Louisiana. On August 10, 2004, a West Baton Rouge parish jury convicted Lee of second-degree murder of Geraldine DeSoto. On October 13, 2004, another jury found Lee guilty of killing Charlotte Murray Pace. January 16, 2016, Lee was rushed to the hospital from his confinement in Angelo due to an unknown medical issue. January 24, 2016, Lee died shortly before 9 a.m. while receiving medical care at Baton Rouge, Louisiana hospital. He was 47 years old. Now, so Lee was sentenced to life and death for the murder of the two women, the DNA evidence used to link them, and 5 additional killings between 1998 and 2003. He was waiting on death row when he got sick. They're very vague about what happened, but he ended up dying at the age of 47 on death row. And that is the story of Derrick Todd Lee. So, what do you think? Do you think that there are more cases out there that we could use this technology on? Do you think that we do use this technology more often now? Another thing I had seen, I'm kind of all over the place today, and I apologize about that, but you kind of get the idea, is that they were saying there was a behavioral profile made for this case. And when they did that DNA genetic makeup, it was wrong. And I find that interesting because I love the show Criminal Minds, which is about behavioral analysis unit. And I was very sad to learn that behavioral analysis units are not like Criminal Minds. And so to me, like, I believe these profiles, and to see one be wrong and very wrong was interesting to me, along with the fact that it just shows that, if that made a loud noise, I apologize. It just shows that witnesses are not always correct, or maybe this white man that they saw was just a random white man who happened to be walking past the area, but it was proven due to DNA evidence that it was Derrick Todd Lee. So these two witnesses that said it was a white man that had the police for so long looking for a white man ended up hindering the search and having him be on the streets much longer. So I find that interesting too. I've learned in forensics that when we take notes from live victims, if we take notes from live victims, that they can be incorrect. Trauma and just sheer things that they go through can mess with your memory. Maybe you block things out, maybe you remember some things later. And so I find that very interesting, and I thought I would share that with you guys as well. not sure where in the video I'm going to add this, but I just wanted to say I thought this was interesting. I was watching the show Forensic Files while in the hospital, and they were mentioning how this is, like I said in the beginning of the video, this case made history. So they weren't able to match the DNA in CODIS. He had never been arrested before, basically. And so they were able to actually get his genetic makeup, what he looked like, from his DNA. So there were apparently 2 witnesses that had said it was a white male they had seen near the area of where they had found one of the bodies. I forget which one it was. And so police were going on that this suspect was a white man. And the DNA profile showed it was a black man. And they didn't believe it at first because this, like I said, this made history. And they had the person who did this study to find the genetic makeup. They gave them the DNA of, I think they said 10 people. And he was able to give them the percentages of each type of person they were, whether they were Asian or Indian or like what, they were able to give percentages and actually prove, and then without seeing photos. And then they were able to match these DNA profiles to the photos, and it would lined up perfectly. That's when they decided they were going to believe the evidence that this was actually a black man and start looking into that. So I just wanted to put that somewhere in this video because I found that to be highly interesting. Thank you for watching another episode of Curious Cat Crime Sunday with Shelby and Olivia. We hope you have a great week, and we hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.